Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 171 for the 13th of August, which is yesterday. For the Russo-Ukraine war, or for the Russians is a special military operations in Ukraine, or for the Ukraine is a liberation war or something. Anyway, let's start off with this helicopter. So 2 times Mi-24 has been destroyed at Domanivka in the Mykolaiv region. So according to the Ministry of Defense of Russia, they say that they were destroyed at a helipad near Domanivka. And this is actually quite a distance away. I have no idea how they hit it, and I also no idea where is the helipad because it's not really on the map. Or is it here? No idea, it's not. So but this is a way long distance from the front line. It's around 130 kilometers, 140 kilometers from the front line, and could be a missile strike or it could be an airstrike. No idea. The Russian Ministry of Defense did not indicate how they destroyed it, or maybe it was never destroyed. They just say it to motivate the troops, to let the troops be happier that, wow, or to demoralize the Ukrainian troops. Who knows? So there is no significant missile strikes other than that to mention, I guess. Yeah, the rest, those are on the Donbass side. So moving on to the Southern Front. At the Southern Front, this is the Mykolaiv Front. The last information that we got was still there was fighting at Shyroke. So it looks like the Russians have launched a new offensive towards the entrenched position here in the Mykolaiv Front, and this time around they are aiming for Shyroke. This is reported by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. This time around the link is a bit different because this is on the Facebook Ministry of Defense page, Facebook page of the Ukraine Defense Ministry, because they did not post it on the Telegram channel. So I have to actually hunt for it on Facebook, and they said that the Russians tried to progress in the area of Lozove and Shyroke. The interesting thing is that how did they attack Shyroke? Is it from Zaporizhzhia direction, or has Lyubimne has been captured by the Russian forces? Because this seems like a bit of a distance, and it seems like a flanking movement if we were to believe that the attack come from Zaporizhzhia. Or it could be something more direct, that Lyubimne has been captured by the Russians and then they are just progressing to the next town. We are not sure what is happening here. But previously, we do know that the Russians did try to attack Pervomayske, Blahodatne, as well as Partizanske. Reportedly, the attack did not yield results for the Russian side. However, it's definitely unclear since no one is talking about it. And so since I already mentioned here, at the Davydiv front, the Russians had launched an attack on Lozove to push the Ukrainian position, the bridgehead over here at just south of Velike Atakove, out back into the other side, the western side of the inhulet rivers. However, the mention is only fighting, and they say that the Russians lost the fight. So no idea what's the result, other than the Russians if we were to believe the Ukrainian side, then the Russians have not succeeded in this attack. There is also reports on shooting downs of HIMARS rockets over Nova Kakhovka, which means the Ukrainians are still trying to take out this crossing over here after they have successfully take out this crossing at Antonivka, just east of Kherson. So this is the only other very stable crossing that they have left now, so they are trying very hard to take it out, but there is some kind of result. So according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, they described that 3 of the 6 hydroelectrical power plant has stopped due to the shelling. So according to the statement, they said that as a result of regular shelling with the GMLRS, which is GPS guided multiple launch rocket system missiles, which is basically the HIMARS, 3 of the 6 turbines were stopped. So the facilities operates in pre-emergency mode. I'm not exactly sure what that's supposed to mean, pre-emergency. So the disruption in the system of electrical, so the Russians are trying to warn us that the disruption in the system of electrical generation and water discharge can disrupt the operation of the integrated energy system and negatively affect the cooling of the reactors at Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which will not only entail disruptions of supply of electricity, but including those that are controlled, and finally they wrote temporarily controlled by Ukraine. A very interesting way of putting it. Some kind of a signal of what they're going to do, but also would lead to environmental catastrophe in the region. So not sure how does they affect each other. Does the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant requires power from this Kakhovka, Nova Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant? I don't think so, but they seems to try to link these two together somehow, and maybe they are trying to tell the Ukrainians to stop attacking the power plants because this is not a good idea. Perhaps according to the Russian side. So let me turn off my audio because my phone keep on ringing. Okay, so moving on to the Kryvyi Rih Front. There is nothing on the Kryvyi Rih Front. Very quiet here. So that's all from the southern front. Moving on to Zaporizhzhia line, we have no information of any changes at Zaporizhzhia line, except that there is fighting reported at Novosilka. This is according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, saying that the Russians are trying to improve their tactical positions in the direction of Novosilka. So I like to joke that improving the tactical positions includes building a bathtub, putting some beautiful lightings, maybe LED lights. But it's unclear what exactly they're supposed to mean. Maybe they are trying to dig a few more trenches. Who knows? But there is fighting at Novosilka. So, but our mapping shows Novosilka is under the Russian control. So when they say in the direction of Novosilka, it's not so clear. What does this supposed to mean? In the same line of text, they mentioned the improvement of tactical position by the Russians in the direction of Pavlivka, which is over here, which means that there is continued fighting in this region here. Mykilske is last reported to have fought the day before, so it could be a continuation of the same battle, because these two towns are very close together, these two villages, so it could be the continuation of the same battle. This was reported by Ryba, by the pro-Russian source, which was not reported by the Ukrainian side. So maybe in the direction of Pavlivka might actually mean in the direction from Mykilske to Pavlivka, which is also in the direction of Pavlivka. So it could be the same battle. They might be describing the same thing, but just that they mention different village towns. And so we are now in Donetsk Front, in case you are wondering. And in the Donetsk Front, all the way on the western side of Donetsk city, Marinka continues to fight fiercely as the battle go on to the 13th of August, which is yesterday. And according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, they did not push back the invaders. Tough battles are ongoing, and usually when the Ukrainians say something like this, things are probably very bad, because usually they will just describe as the Russians are getting bounced back. But when they say battles are ongoing, usually it follows with the loss of their position, or at least they admit that the Russians have some success. So this is not good sign from the Ukrainian side. This is reported by the Ukraine Defense Ministry, and they also mentioned a series of other locations which we will now go through. But before we reach there, the Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of Pisky, which is translated to sands. They have a few names. This is called Pisky. Sometimes they call it some other. There's a variety of names, but for our coverage purpose, we will follow whatever Google Maps name it. So it's Pisky. So according to the Russian Defense Ministry, they put out a one-liner: Allied forces offensive resulted in the complete liberation of Pisky in Donetsk People's Republic. So this battle I have already described in the quick update. So if you have not watched the quick update, I suggest that you can go and watch the quick update. Then which I'll actually talk a bit more on what actually happened over here. So it's unclear which direction they will go next. Could they go for Mykilske along all these houses, which is very Marinka-ish, or would they actually go across the field to Vodiane, which they had previously tried to attack once, probably around 2 weeks ago, I think. So but I think that they might actually go for Vodiane. The reason is because their aim is actually to eject the Ukrainian forces from the Avdiivka city or their stronghold. So taking Verdians, and then they go northward to Zhivny, Toneke, they will actually force a kind of encirclement which Avdiivka defenders might actually bounce. So perhaps that might be the case. And talking about Avdiivka, the fighting continues at Avdiivka here. So fighting continues at Avdiivka, and this is it's not so clear from which direction. They just simply say fighting continues at Avdiivka. The day before, we had the report that was the fighting is actually in the direction from Spartak. So from our coverage, if you are following, you would know that it actually comes from two different directions. One from the Spartak, the other direction coming from Mineralne. So there is actually two directions moving towards Avdiivka. Fighting continues fiercely. Moving on to the north of Avdiivka, the fighting continues at Krasnohorivka from Nova Bakhmutivka, and we also, in the same line of information from the Ukraine Defense Ministry, that there is an attack on Oleksandropil. So Oleksandropil, which is obviously the fighting is definitely coming from Nova Bakhmutivka as well. So there is this branching off, but maybe this force is actually not from Nova Bakhmutivka, but actually from Novosilka, Druha, because this previous information from why it's from Nova Bakhmutivka actually, I believe, is come from the Ukraine Defense Ministry. But I think the more likelihood is that this force is pushing north, and the forces here is actually pushing west, which actually would make more sense than the same force actually splitting into half. So essentially, if you look at this in the big picture, it looks like the Russians are making a renewed offensive on the Donetsk Front, pushing in multiple directions and pushing fiercely to the point where the Ukrainians have to admit that tough battles are still ongoing. So moving on, there's nothing around the New York region, and we are now into the very end of the Donetsk Front, which here I prefer to call it the Bakhmut Front. So in the Bakhmut Front, the fighting at the Zaitseve was not mentioned yesterday. There might be a possibility that the position might have been captured by the Russian forces. We are not so sure. And the fighting at Dachau is also not mentioned. So is Kodema. So these are all these location below is not mentioned. Moving on, we have information from the Ukraine Defense Ministry that battles continuing at Zaitseve. Again, they did not admit that the Russians are bounced back, but they actually mentioned that there are still combat operations in certain areas. Although they did say with offensive and stormy actions was not successful, the kind of adjective that they are using does not bond well with the situation for the Ukrainian side, because you don't really want to praise the enemy unless things are really rather bad for yourself. So fighting at Zaitseve and as well as Vershyna. So but you can also have to accept that the defenses over at this side is really holding up pretty well for some time now, because the Russians have a lot of problems trying to capture this seemingly meaningless town of very few houses. However, if you look at a pre-war entrenchment, you can see that this area here is very, very heavily entrenched. You see the number of massive fortifications are crazy. So maybe the Russians are having trouble with all these fortifications. We continue to have we previously have a report on the battle fighting at the Vershyna Dolyna. We have no information on it for the 13th, so maybe they will mention on the 14th. But it's conceivable that the fighting continues over there. At Bakhmut, fighting continues as reported by the Ukraine Defense Ministry. We do not have additional information other than what I have already reported yesterday, where the Russian forces is around this region, the furniture factory, as well as in the edge of the residential area. Other than that, we don't really have any information. This idea of the foothold in the northeast part from Intel's lava seems to be out of the norm, or out of the way. It doesn't make quite much sense unless you are talking about this part. So I will just delete this. So I believe it's talking about this part, not the northeast. It's simply the east. So moving on to the Soledar region. In the Soledar, fighting was not mentioned. Actually, fighting was mentioned, I believe. Let me check. No, it wasn't mentioned. However, I did indicate that according to Ryba, the fighting is actually continuing, and the situation did not really change. They're still talking about the Russians trying to. They have captured the Kharkiv, Donbass Ud, or basically the Kharkiv gypsum plant, and then they are trying to develop an attack towards this position here at the Balakliya refractory plant. The Ryba did not mention anything new, so the situation is as per status quo over here at Soledar. There is no other mention. I did see rumors about capture of Bakhmut. However, in my sources, I did not see the capture of Bakhmut, so I will not report this as that just yet. Fighting is reported at Yakovlivka, however, by the Ukraine Defense Ministry, and also at no, not at Vershyna. Vershyna 9th of August. So no idea what happened to this. This has been a long time already. So I will delete this because it's 9. However, so I'll push this back to the just east of the railway line. This is a railway line. However, we do have the report of fighting at Vyimka. So they use some creative language. They say got a hard kick off and step back. So not sure what that's supposed to mean. So but this Vyimka one, I believe that is coming from the Lozove direction, because the fighting at Ivano-Darivka continues as reported by the Ukraine Defense Ministry, and in even Sperne, the Ukraine Defense Ministry continued to mention Sperne to be under shelling. I forgot to update here. So which means that there is still Ukrainian forces along this entire line, and if the Ivano-Darivka is attacked from the north, I don't think this Vyimka can be attacked from the north as well, because the Russians have not taken Vyimka. So I believe the attack is coming from the south, from the Lozove direction, which means that the Vyimka and Ivano-Darivka forces might actually create an encirclement against the troops at Sperne. So things are not looking exactly very well over this direction. So here we at the Siversk front, Mykilske, there was no reports on that. Neither is Krasnohorivka. The most is all bombardments. So that's all from the Siversk and Bakhmut front. At the Izyum front, there is report of fighting at Dolyna, and so they say that the Russian forces tried to break the defenses but did not succeed. This translation is so funny. Tried to break through the defense of the troops, had no success, but they passed it. So no, but I think they did not succeed. The Ukrainian forces held their position, and interestingly, they mentioned Nova Dmytrivka in the same sentence, which means this is a new offensive by the Russians in this highly neglected front south of Izyum city. So other than that, we do not have any other information about this. Husarivka is not mentioned. I think if it's still not mentioned for another day, we're going to delete this as well. And now we are at the Kharkiv Front. At the Kharkiv Front, there's fighting reported at Pitomnik. So according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, the Russian forces is trying to improve their tactical positions, and however, they met with very dignified. How do I put this? The Ukrainian soldiers met the invaders with dignity. So the translation is just a bit weird, and then causes losses and forced them to flee. So a very dignified victory for the Ukrainians, pushing back the offensive at against Potomnik. And there is also another offensive reported by the pro-Russian source Ryber. They mentioned that in the there's the soldiers of the 200 I forgot what is this. The armed forces of Russian Federation entered the village of Udi. So prior to this, they mentioned that the Russian reconnaissance troops destroyed several positions of the 92 Omber of the Ukrainian armed forces in the village. So the way how they phrase it might actually means that Udi might be captured by the Russian forces. So we have to put a mental note on this, that it might be a situation where Udi might actually be captured by the Russians based on the way how they describe it. This is by the pro-Russian source Ryber. So this is the summary for the day of 171 for the 13th of August. So that's all, and do subscribe if you find this useful, and if you do share this with your contact. The channel have been struggling to grow. Not sure, maybe algorithm, maybe people just not interested in the Ukraine war anymore. So do help to share. If not, the coverage will start to get a bit more difficult to continue with all this lesser interest or lesser support. The views are important for the revenue. And on Twitter, two of the very prominent Twitter accounts that are covering and mapping the Ukraine war has kind of went AWOL, or they are not covering anymore. Ukraine Battle Map on the 8th tweeted that he will be going on a break, and then he continues to be broken until now. And for the Ukraine war map, which the one that I have a lot of Twitter battles with him, he told me that so I asked him about his coverage, asking why he wasn't updating. He mentioned to me something to the extent, something to mean that he had someone actually doing the map, and that guy, the mapper, actually disappeared and uncontactable, so he do not have a map to actually share the mapping. So something to that kind of extent, you can actually ask him, or if it's just so weird. So two of the major mappers on Twitter has kind of went AWOL. I think the only mappers left is me, which is DPA, Suryak's map, I think, and also ISW, the Institute Study of War. Of course, there's no point looking at the British Ministry of Defense. The British one, the UK Ministry of Defense one map is pointless. Don't look at it. It's just all propaganda and nonsense. And I think DevMon 3 might have a map. They have their own map, I think, although I don't really look at this map because sometimes overly pro-Ukrainian accounts can be full of very misleading information. And I think UA Live map is still mapping, definitely. So the number of mappers has fallen. So that's why your continued support is very important. But if you're not interested, then you're not interested, so I cannot force you to watch. So anyway, this is just a very long-winded conclusion, and I'll see you in the next update.